Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Risk and Assurance Committee meeting today. In order to open the meeting, I'd like to ask Councillor Zabelin to open with a karakia. Thank you, Councillor.
Morena tātou, me karakia I noi. Tūtaua mai I runga, tūtaua mai I raro, tūtaua mai I roto, tūtaua mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumie, huie, tae kie. Ngā mihi.
Thank you, Councillor. And just to go through some important housekeeping for today's meeting. Firstly, this meeting is being recorded and will be live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The Council's safety procedures are shown on the screen in front of us and are there to be read. On hearing an alarm, obviously leave the site to the nearest fire exit, evacuate to the assembly area. A reminder that smoking and vaping is prohibited. There's a defibrillator located outside the entrance to customer services, and any near misses need to be reported. Today we have Councillor Finlay attending this meeting online. But to any other online participants, just a reminder to keep your cameras turned on, but your microphones muted unless you're addressing the meeting. We'll have our normal voting procedures in place today, using the voting devices in front of councillors. Amendments should be emailed to the committee administrator, to my right. And officers, if you could give your name when you're presenting or speaking at the meeting. Before we move on to apologies, just a couple of other housekeeping matters for today's meeting. We have a hard close at 12:10 today. So we've made some modification to the agenda that is in front of you. So on the run sheet today, I'm intending to take items 9 and 10 on the agenda, the Strategic Risk Management Report and the Long-Term Plan 2024-2034 debrief as our last two items, mindful that if we run short of time, we could defer those items to our next meeting. And the other matter that I think just in terms of housekeeping today is that when we get to the health and safety report, my intention is to deal with that report in the public part of the meeting, but we will then go into the private component of the meeting to deal with the confidential attachment, and we will also then at that point deal with the cybersecurity presentation and confirm minutes before we return to the main meeting and take the recommendation on the Health and Safety Committee report. Today we have, in terms of apologies, an apology from the Mayor, who is absent on council business, and also we have apologies for late arrival from Councillor Barrett and for early departure from Councillor Wood. Could I have a mover, Councillor Naylor, and a seconder? I'm happy. Or Councillor Zabelin. So if we could put those apologies to the please. How are we going on that? That's been carried unanimously. One additional item that, before we get going on the remainder of the agenda, I'd just like to note that Our CE Wade Crockett is unable to attend the meeting today due to other business commitments. So we have alongside me today our CFO. So thank you for that, Cameron. I'm unaware that we have any additional items, and I think we've been notified, so there are none. There are no declarations of interest to record, and there is no public comment. So with that in mind, I'd like to go to agenda item 6, which is confirmation of the minutes from our meeting on the 12th of March. Do I have a mover for those minutes? Councillor Naylor, Councillor Dennison, seconded. So we'd like to put those to the vote, please. And that's been carried unanimously. So I'd like now to move to item 7 on our agenda, which is the Audit New Zealand 2024-25 financial year audit plan. And welcome to the table Scott Manser, Desiree Viggers, and is Debbie, and welcome Debbie, Debbie Pereira, Audit Director. Thank you. We're in your good hands.
Morena tātou. Pleasure to be here today to present the audit plan for the end of the financial year. That's only 19 days away. And so attached is the report that Debbie will talk to, but probably just to highlight that this is a very much a BAU audit. It's a very legislative and compliance-based audit, and some key things are in the paper with the further details in the attachment. And we have a tight time frame this year with the intent of adopting prior to the triennium completing before the election as well. So at this point we are still on track, although we are very early in that process.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yep. Kia ora koutou. So this is, I'm pleased to be able to present our audit plan. This is, as Scott said, it is business as usual. We do have the valuation of the Three Waters this year, so that is a significant area of focus for us. And part of the discussions that we had, probably maybe the last meeting or the meeting before, was around bringing work forward and what we can do to do that. And so we have been in discussions with management, and the valuations are going to be done as at 31st of March, or ready by 31st of May. And we are due, thank you, sorry, a bit croaky. We are due to start our audit on that on the 23rd of June. So the plan is that we get the work done outside of the time that we would normally be doing it as part of the final audit. And because it is such a big part of your balance sheet, it makes up a large number. It is a significant area for us. And there are a lot of judgments in terms of evaluation, so a lot of inputs. We are, in particular, will be looking at the unit costs and looking to see that council has a database of the costs to support the valuation. And then there's a fair value assessment of infrastructure assets that are in a non-revaluation year. So for yourselves, that's the roading assets. And so while you don't do a full revaluation, you still have to do an assessment to see what the fair value is, to make sure that it's not materially different. And so we also put a lot of focus on that, just to satisfy ourselves that that there shouldn't be a valuation. Investment property, so every year you're required to do a valuation on investments as well. So a very big part of our audit is around the valuation. And then we've got accounting for impairment, capitalisation costs and recognition of completed assets. So because council has a large amount of capital expenditure throughout the year, we are really looking to see that assets are capitalised in a timely manner, that any work in progress that is sitting in council's books do relate to current assets and aren't assets that have been abandoned or superseded. So that's another important part. And then the final area of focus for us is around management override of internal controls. And this is a focus for every entity. And we address that by reviewing journal entries, looking at accounting estimates that may have some form of management bias in it. The rest of my plan just steps through some of the areas that are common to all local government. In particular, the local water done well reforms, and that's a ever-changing platform at the moment with the latest bill coming through. We will share with management any updates that we get. So we're constantly getting updates, and I have regular meetings with LGNZ, Tautuara, just to see what's happening in the space, and with OAG as well. And then finally, we've got our materiality, which we set out. So that just gives you an indication. This is based on the planning, so on your budgeted amounts. We will update this as part of our final audit, but it just gives you an idea of the levels that we're talking about. When you see the overall materiality, so we've got the overall group and we've got the overall parent materiality, that is to do with the revaluation of infrastructure assets. And that's the only thing that's applied to. The specific materiality is for everything else. And then we've got our material performance measures. So I have listed these here. They're very similar to previous years. Safety of drinking water being a priority, compliance with resource consents, wastewater customer satisfaction, transport customer satisfaction, and then your road maintenance and building consent processing times are the ones that we have highlighted as the ones that we will pay particular attention to. We do look at the rest of your performance measures as well, but these are the ones that we have deemed to be material. And finally is our timetable on page 20 of my report. And as part of that, we have a timetable to adopt pre-election, so that's the 8th of October. So bringing the work forward as much as we can will greatly assist with meeting that time frame. But I'm happy to take any questions that anyone might have about that.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Debbie and Scott. Just some questions about 2.3, the key focus areas, which I gather from your report and from your comments are focus areas that are specific to Palmerston North as opposed to nationwide. How were those focus areas determined?
So, so those focus areas are based on areas of risk and what impact that might have on your financial statements and what impact that might have on the reader of your financial statements. And so, as you will have heard, a lot of that is around the revaluation because it's such a big number, but it also feeds into your depreciation number that then feeds into your rates. in a way, into your levels of service as well, because if you aren't maintaining your assets, or if there has been a decrease in the valuation, there could potentially be a decrease in your levels of service. While these are specific to Palmerston City Council, you will find that these are pretty similar to most other councils around the country. All councils are on a revaluation cycle, an infrastructure revaluation cycle, and that they'll be at different stages. And for all entities, the management override is one that we do have a significant area of focus.
Okay, and how much input do staff have into those decisions, or is that audit decision?
So we have, we meet with staff and with the Mayor and with the Chair of Audit and Risk. There's a bit of a timetable in the back of my report here that shows, when we originally met. So what happens is we, as an audit team, will meet. We have a planning meeting. We go through what's on your horizon, what are the areas of risk, and then I prepared this report and then met with everybody and talked through that. So if there is anything that does come up out of that, we would include, and I think we had a few iterations of this as well. Yeah.
Okay, so we could say it's a collaborative effort?
Yes.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that we could not read too much into the choice of areas that were chosen, or should we be understanding something particular about those areas being chosen?
In terms of reading too much, there's probably not a great level of concern about the areas that are chosen. They are the areas that you would expect, given the dollar value that they represent. Yep.
Okay, and just one last question, Mr. Chair. Just about the timing, that you've tried to squeeze it all in, I gather, before the election. What's the reason for that?
So that was a request from council to adopt pre-election. While there is no legal requirement to do so, the legal requirement is 31st of October, but it was council's preference to go pre-election so that this council, because your annual report is a flow-on from your long-term plan, so this council can adopt it, and rather than the next council, so that was a collaborative decision with council.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add something to that, Councillor Johnson. So with where the election dates are this year, and with some of the changes in the Local Electoral Act and the timeframes, if there was a contest or something like that with the final election decision, we would not necessarily be able to have had an inaugural council meeting by the 31st of October. So the ability to actually adopt by the new council is extremely limited.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. My questions relate to the timing as well. Just looking at the time frame on page 14, with the verbal audit clearance given on by the 24th of September, and then the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting on the 1st of October, my recollection last year was that it was less than ideal that committee members weren't able to have a report of some sort to read and prepare themselves with coming to the meeting. Is there any reason why even a draft report or some sort of report, is there any reason why it has to be only a verbal audit clearance at that point, or is there any way that the committee can be better informed prior to that meeting?
So we call it a verbal audit clearance because we don't issue the signed copy of the audit opinion at that time, because we do that when council adopts the audit opinion, and it would depend on what's in your audit opinion, whether there was anything that needed to be cleared, but we should have a good idea as to whether it's going to be a clear opinion or whether there's going to be anything included there. Yeah.
If I could also just add, that also gives us the logistics of being able to print the paperwork for that committee meeting. So that date is a week before the committee meeting so that we can produce the document with verbal clearance from audit, knowing that there's going to be no major changes once we hit go on that document.
So you're saying that there will be something in writing that committee members can observe prior to the meeting, even though,
Yes, I think that's the point around how tight the timeframes are. Debbie's team and my team will be doing absolutely everything we can to make sure that document is produced ahead of the time. And if I could speak maybe for Debbie here, we'll aim to have the draft wording of the audit opinion included in that as much as possible.
perfect, thank you. And the last two items there, audit opinion issued and draft report to council issued, what was the difference between those two things?
So I can answer that. So the audit opinion is the report that attaches into your annual report. So it's about 4 or 5 pages that goes with your annual report, and it gives my opinion. The report to council is the findings coming out of that, and so you may remember, I think at the last Audit and Risk Committee meeting, I talked to that with the findings from the last audit. So that's more where we go into detail about what our risks were and what we found and any recommendations for improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Naylor. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Debbie and team. Just on page 30 regarding the material measures, I see you've particularly highlighted building consent processing times as an area you're going to assess. I recall it was your last report you identified resource consent reporting as an area of concern. I'm just wondering why that hasn't been listed as one of the material measures for the coming year or for the coming report.
So I think last year we had highlighted building consents and resource consents. So this year we re-looked at, and there have been some other changes in here too from previous years. I can't remember the exact differences, but when we were looking at it, we were looking at what's important to the public and the impact. And so we highlighted building consents as being the one for this year. So we will change those from time to time so that we're not necessarily doing everything the same. The one that we probably won't change is the safety of drinking water. That's one that will always be. Yep.
So apologies, I've missed something, but so can I take it to mean that audit is comfortable with our resource consent reporting that we now do, as opposed to where we were at when the last report came through?
So we, at the last report, we did have some issues with, I can't remember if it was building resource consents. Yeah. So we will be following up on that. So we won't be ignoring it. We just haven't highlighted it as one of the overall ones.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
I might just add there, and I'm sure Debbie will correct me if I'm wrong here, but the interim audit that was in April, the team that was on site provided no insight to whether that would be an issue this year, and they would believe the item should be cleared from our audit opinion, subject to Debbie's sign-off, which we'll be going through as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I have just a couple of questions. Thank you, Debbie and Scott. Clearly, the fair value accounting is a significant component of this audit. Could you please just provide a little more colour on, have there been any changes to independent expert input into that valuation process? What's the selection process? How do we get to the point where we choose our valuers?
Yeah, I might take that one. So we did a comprehensive procurement process at the end of last year and into the start of this calendar year. I believe the consulting firm that was picked is a different firm than the previous time, but because it's every 3 years, we go out regularly to do that. And I believe the audit team and the consulting firm have been working side by side to ensure that all of the documentation is accurate and valid, and checking assumptions as we go. So I've seen a few emails lately that indicate that we're on track in that regard from both sides of the fence, unless Debbie's got anything else to add.
So yeah, I'll just add to that. So it is a different valuer this year, but we have had an early meeting with them, which was very useful because it set out, what we're looking for. We were able to iron out, some of the expectations. And I was pleased with the meeting, and they were already onto the issues that we were looking for.
So you're very confident the valuer that we've chosen has the appropriate expertise, exposure in the industry to
Yeah,
do
so
this
that
job?
is part of what we will be assessing, but our initial meeting with them was very positive, in that regard.
Okay. And then just in regards to that valuation process between this current financial year and last year, have there been any material changes in valuation inputs that you think this committee needs to be aware of, and is there any debate or discussion around those inputs that we should be aware of?
The two different years have two different sets of assets that are revalued. So last year was our property and parks assets, and they're undergoing the fair value piece that Debbie spoke about before. This year is the water infrastructure. They are a significant dollar value in their own right, and some of the movements are fairly reasonable. And that's the reason we're having the audit team working alongside the valuer and our internal experts to confirm that the values are being reported correctly. It's a fairly reasonable level of change to the value of the assets.
So last year with those assets, you would have assessed the carrying value of those assets and determined that it was still within an appropriate range based on a set of assumptions. Are you seeing any material changes to those assumptions?
Not sure I follow the last part, but that was correct. It was within the bands of the assumptions that we provided, and the auditors were comfortable that we were reporting within the bands for them as well.
Okay, but you're signalling that we may see some movement this year.
We absolutely will see some movement this year, particularly for the water infrastructure assets. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, I was just interested in the regulatory compliance aspect of the audit, and could you just outline for me how the management team and the external audit team are confident in terms of the processes that we have in place around regulatory compliance? How does the management team and the CE put their hands on their hearts and say that we are complying with all regulation and statute?
I might pass that one up to Cameron to answer.
Right, now I've got the technology working. Yeah, look, good question. One of the things that we do is we do look at the various statutes and things that our respective areas are responsible for, and we do assess against those to ensure that we are meeting those. And yeah, so annually we do a bit of a compliance check, I guess, against those regulations. Certainly, when it comes to things pertaining to the annual report specifically, there are various different regulations and things in the service performance measures, as well as financial reporting rules and regulations from DIA that the external auditor ensures that we are reporting correctly. So I'm not aware of any issues that to raise at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Cameron. Debbie, did you want to add anything? Go on.
So from our perspective, in terms of the regulations, we are reviewing the regulations that impact on the annual report and that have to be disclosed. But we also do inquire wider than that in case there is any liability that could be coming against council that would also need to be disclosed. So we raise that in each of our meetings, legislative compliance, are there any issues? But we do specifically look at the regulations that you're required to report against. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Naylor.
Apologies, I did have one further question. Just on page 27, under the legislative compliance, there's, in terms of the integrity self-assessment survey, and that it says that PNCC is one of the 22 organisations that have been surveyed. What's the timing of that information coming back to us?
So the survey hasn't actually gone out yet. So it's proposed. The last I heard will be probably end of June that it will come. That the survey questions will come out to you. The intention is that we will. So they're being centrally gathered, in that we will be given the results back to report as part of our reporting back to council at the end of the audit. So my understanding is that we will get your specific, we'll have some comments on your specific responses, as well as a sector response. Yeah.
And is that the same work that the DIA are doing, or is that different?
This is different. So this is an initiative that is run by Audit New Zealand and the Office of the Auditor General. So every council that is audited by Audit New Zealand will be surveyed.
And the fact that PNCC is one of the 22, is that just a random thing, or is there a reason why PNCC's been identified as?
So that there's 51 local authorities. So we audit 51 local authorities. So all local authorities are selected, and then there's 22 central government organisations.
Sorry, I read that wrong. Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Naylor. So there are no further questions. So I'd like to thank you, Debbie, and also the management team for having the opportunity to debate and discuss this report. So thank you very much. We have a recommendation in front of us that the committee receive the audit plan for the 2024-25 financial year from our appointed auditor, as presented to the Risk and Assurance Committee on 11th of June 2025. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Naylor. Seconder, Councillor Dennison. At this point, we'll throw that open to comments, of which at this point there aren't any. I'd just like to say that I really support the engagement, and I think this year we're earlier than we have been. Very, very supportive of bringing work forward to streamline this process, and would like to be very encouraging of both the management team and the audit team to think further about how they can spread the work through the process so that we have more time to deliberate and focus on really fundamental issues in this process. So I'd like to thank you for the efforts to date and encourage you to continue. So given there are no further comments, I'd like to put this recommendation to the vote, please. So we have that carried unanimously, 9 votes in favour. So thank you. We will now move to item 8 on the agenda, the Business Assurance Report, and welcome back to the Chair, Desiree Viggers. to present this report. Thank you, Desiree.
Kia ora koutou. Mr Chair, councillors, thank you for that. This is your regularly scheduled 6-monthly accountability report for you. Since the last report in November 2024, there have been a further 33 actions that have been closed and another 71 identified with good progress. There has been the incorporation of the health and safety report from earlier this year. And also the audit report, which we were just discussing, has been incorporated into that, and you can see that in the attachment there. There has been a big push in the last few months, to get some of the older action items moved along, and I would commend the staff for all of their work in that area. It hasn't been the easiest thing to do, and I'd like to just make a special thank you to Yui Ting Chan and Stephen Minton, who are here behind me, who have corralled the staff and compiled the information and done some of the analysis, and so I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that, so thank you very much. Happy to take some questions.
Microphone. Thanks, Mr Chair. Thanks, Desiree, for the report. I'd just like to focus on the health and safety review that was presented in August 2021. So that's on page 49 of our papers. And it's almost 4 years now since that was presented, and we've still got numerous items that are outstanding with just in progress after them. Now, I noticed that most of them originally had a completion date 2 years ago, and now they've all got the completion date of this month. So are you able to provide some explanation as to why it's taken this amount of time to sign in these ones off, and also how close are they to being completed, given that we've got in progress against all of them and the date's up now?
Yeah, the date's very, very soon. Well, it is now, in fact. So this report is compiling the information as to the end of April. So we were allowing for a little bit more time for some of these that can actually... Can you hear me? God.
No, you need to be a bit closer to the microphone, sorry.
I might just... There is a lot in there, and you know that there has been a subsequent report also. So there is a lot of work in this space, and I know that it is something that the organisation is heavily focusing on. Some of the items in there are ongoing, and I might just hand over to the GM to give you a bit more detail on that. Or Selwyn.
Selwyn, yeah.
Come on.
Kia ora, Councillor, through the Chair. So the program of works around the original audit didn't start until 2023. Soon after I started, we started developing the program. As you know, we've also got a 2025 audit. There is confidence that once we progress our safety framework, and this is a program of works which incorporate a 2016 manual that hadn't been progressed for a long time. So it's all part of one program of works, a safety improvement plan, which is the framework. And so that should help towards closing out all of the 2021 audit requirements, and we're actually working well through the 25 recommendations as well.
Thank you. So are they on track to be completed this month?
Not this month. In July, we'll present the safety the framework to SLT for consideration, but looking towards adopting it this year. Looking to adopt the framework, which is the new manual, which will encompass some of those 21 closeouts.
Looking to adopt it when?
July, we present it to SLT, so once SLT has reviewed it, I hope to introduce it by August.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, all of these agreed actions are part of one piece of work, which is the safety improvement plan and the framework. And so once that is adopted, all of these will be closed out at the same time, is that correct?
Yeah, yes, there is an introduction of new policies which didn't exist before, especially around hazardous substance. So I'm confident that it'll come to a conclusion around August, and then we can continue to monitor it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Mr Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Zavalin.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Morning, Desiree. My question is relating to the manager comment for the asset management maturity assessment, which is on page 56. And there's just a comment there that that program's pretty much hamstrung because of the cuts to the professional services budget. And I just wondered if someone could speak a bit more to the ins and outs of that.
Thank you. I'll just ask Helen, the asset management.
Thank you.
What's your manager?
Manager of Asset Management Planning. Yes, so it was mainly just the asset management maturity assessment. Obviously, there has to be some things that maybe couldn't go ahead, and we had some other things that we needed to make sure that did go ahead, like our budgets for valuations and things like that. So it does mean we do have the opportunity internally to use a new asset management assessment tool, which we will. There's a new one coming out from the central sort of professional body for asset management, so we will use that internally and do that ourselves, but obviously it wouldn't have the rigour of an independent one this time around.
Thank you. And then, so in 2028, we have another opportunity to do one with the more rigorous option?
Correct, yes. Our team obviously is quite tied to the 3-yearly cycle. And so 2028 would be the next opportunity to do an independent external one.
And is that factored into the LTP process in terms of budget, or are we
Yes.
looking at still a bit of a tight budget?
It will be. When we did our 10 LTP budgets, we did everything on 3-yearly cycles for the entirety of the LTP.
Okay.
And as far as I'm aware, that budget has not been affected yet.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I think that was my questions, because Councillor Johnson asked my health and safety ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harpeta.
Thanks, Mr Chair. My questions are around the financial delegations review, and it's pretty similar to everybody else's, along the lines of why is it not going to be completed until June 2026? And in the comments it says that's not been sufficient capacity to progress assurance framework recommendations. So I just wanted to comment on that.
We have done a lot of work on the financial delegations, and we are always reviewing the delegations themselves. So I think that just an overall review is probably what is potentially outstanding, and I think Hannah wants to comment.
On the framework piece, which was a recommendation from that assurance work, it hasn't been prioritised, ultimately because I've had someone away on parental leave. And so I wasn't able to allocate that project work to a staff member. We had to prioritise BAU.
So it's still sitting at June 26?
Yeah, so I have full staff as of 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that's the aim. Ultimately, the delegations manual itself, we've made huge progress on in the last 2 years. If you'll remember the number of times we've brought sections of the delegations manual to you. So I'm confident that we're in a much stronger space than we were at the point of that assurance report.
But this is the financial delegations rather than just
Correct, correct, which was one section. So we revised all the financial delegations from the Chief Executive down with the introduction of the new financial system that we're using. That's been implemented throughout the whole organisation, including a new system from IT, a new system from the EA to the Chief Executive. So that's all specific to financial delegations. So those themselves are not spot checks, which is what this item is referring to, but they are processes that didn't exist that allow for strength in the system.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Denison.
Thank you, Chair. Just in regards to the business continuity planning, it says that 2 out of the 3 outstanding are complexity, notes them, Three Waters, contact centre. What's the third of those three?
Just ask Jason to come down and enlighten you. Sorry, what page are we on?
It's page 45 on the business continuity plan, and it's in the first paragraph underneath the heading, and it notes 2 of the 3 remaining outstanding, and it notes them in the brackets, Three Waters Contact Centre, and I was interested in what the third one of those 3 was.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jason McDowell, Manager of Emergency Management. The final one that's missing is the new function of organisation planning, performance and planning with Grace. So there was a strategy meeting that she's conducted in the last week where we'll be able to develop her business continuity plan to reflect the strategy and where that development of her division has come from to ensure that that's sitting in place.
Okay, so when it's on the previous page in 44, when it says one's in progress, can I just understand, are you with me? It's just on that bracket across, it's just got 1 in progress. Can I understand which one of those 3 is still in progress?
So that's if looking on page 45, the scenario that's run across the council at least annually using a range of scenarios. That's the outstanding action.
Okay.
And the comment is talking about the progress that's been made up until this point. So there's exercise planned for later in the year with the senior leadership team, as well as in conjunction planning around a civil defence emergency regional exercise that there'll be linkages into the senior leadership team without it giving too much away for that planning.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. There are no further questions, so we'll move to the recommendation that the committee receive the memorandum entitled Business Assurance Accountability Report and its attachment presented to the Risk and Assurance Committee on 11 June 2025. I move it, Councillor Naylor, seconder, Councillor Dennison. So we'll open that for comments. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Chair. I was saying it's pleasing progress, and particularly my questions around the business continuity plan. It's been an area of weakness in previous terms, of it being just sitting there idle without attention, and it makes reference back to the original 2019 recommendation. But the approach that management are taking now to deal with this and the progress made, I think it needs noting that it's a pleasing outcome now. It's actually something that we've put into a strength of ours now. And so really wanted to highlight that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you for the report. It's a very useful report and helpful. I'd just like to suggest that maybe it would be a bit more helpful and save some questions if on the status where it says in progress, there could be some kind of general comment referring to, how far in progress it is, because in progress can be 1% in progress or 99% in progress. And to save us having to ask questions on every single item, it'd be helpful if we could just have a bit more information around the degree of progress that's been made, and particularly highlighting if there are any sort of impediments to getting the thing completed on time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Zabelin.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that I thought it was really good and helpful to get some eyes on some of the ways in which our professional services budget cuts are falling and what the tangible impacts of that are, and then how we're plugging the gaps. I think it's good to keep an eye on that, just so we know what the impacts actually are on the ground. And also I wanted to make comment on the progress on the business continuity plans. That's just really encouraging to see that happening at pace. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. There are no further wishing to make comment, so thank you very much to the management team for this report and the progress, and we can now put this recommendation to the vote. That's been carried unanimously, so I'd like now to move on to item 11, the wellbeing report for the period 1 January to 31 March, and welcome Connie Roos and Wayne Wilson to the front desk. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou. My apologies for the voice. I just wanted to say that in reflection on this quarterly report, I can say that the participation rate in exit surveys still remains being a challenge. The highlight of the report, though, is that we have done a lot of training in the space of de-escalation and situational awareness training, since public abuse is quite high. It's a high risk for our people. In that space, we've done a lot of movement and prioritised that matter. So I'm open now for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie, are there questions on this report? No? Excellent. Well done, team. We have a recommendation to receive the memorandum as presented to the committee on 11th June 2025. Moved by Councillor Hapeta, seconded by Councillor Dennison. We can now, are there any comments? Yes, so we'll throw that open. Councillor Evelyn.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment that in reading this report and these reports as they've come in, I've been a bit struck by the range of development training that we offer particularly. It just seems very well-rounded and with plenty of opportunities given the wide range of activities and challenges that our staff have to deal with. And I'm quite impressed, given the context of the Health and Safety Part 2 report, that we do have structures and spaces and training and services in place to help our people navigate that safely, or as safely as possible. And I've worked in the public sector and the private sector, and I've certainly never had access to that breadth of support. And I just wanted to thank the staff for what they're creating, because it's been great to watch these reports progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnson.
I just wanted to comment positively on the reduction in staff turnover, which I think is really striking when you look at page 121 of the report. January 23, the annual turnover percentage was 20%. April 25, it's down to 10.9%. And what that represents, to me anyway, is a much improved culture within the organisation. And staff feeling that their needs are being met at work. And so I just want to commend, and I think, you know, it starts at the top, but there's a lot of people been involved in this, Connie's team as well as, you know, HR and individual managers in their departments. But I know a huge effort has been put into it, but the figures tell one story, but the story from an elected member perspective, I think, is that we get much better reporting. Things are not lost between staff. You know, when there's high turnover, sometimes information isn't passed through correctly. Projects stop and start, and I think it's been reflective in the performance of the organisation, the fact that the turnover's reduced so significantly in such a short space of time. And I think it's very commendable and just needed to be commented on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hapeta.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Councillor Johnson stole my words. I actually had written turnover down, so I just want to commend the Chief Executive, who's not here, but to all the staff to say thank you. This is such a great thing to see the turnover being down so well, and also this report is an amazing report, so thank you very much for the report. It's a really good report. It's a really great read. The whole report is a really good read, so thank you very much for being so transparent and being so positive with this report. So thank you very much for the report. It's great, so I don't want to say any more. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Dennison.
You're having a theme of comment because it needs to be made mention, and I don't want to repeat comments made by Councillor Johnson or Hapeta, but it is worth noting, and the organisational health is clearly improved for that spike over those middle years in that turnover table. And the benefit or the outcome is what Councillor Johnson was referring to. It's just true. We get better reports. The institutional knowledge was kind of going out the door at the same time, and there was no succession training that was intentional. It was just kind of filling gaps. And so that put us at, a weak period of time, actually. And we're prone to repeating mistakes of the past and maybe not knowing how to do things. And I think we're still probably coming an outflow of that in some respects, but we're in a much better space now, and brings a lot of confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. There are no further comments, so I'd like to put that recommendation to the vote. Thank you. It's been carried unanimously, and well done to the management team, and some very positive feedback there for you. So if we could move to agenda item 12 now, the committee work schedule on page 125 of the published pack. And I'd like to defer to Cameron. Is there anything you'd like to draw out on the work schedule on behalf of Wade? Okay, so any questions on that committee work schedule? No? So we will the recommendation that the committee receive its work schedule dated June 2025. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Hapeta, Councillor Naylor seconding. Are there any comments? None, so we'll now put that to the vote. Thank you. It has been carried unanimously, so we'll now move to agenda item 13 on page 129 of the published pack. The Health and Safety Report for 1 January to 31 March 2025, and welcome Selwyn Ponga-Davis to the desk. Thank you, Selwyn.
Kia ora tātou, te iwi o Rangitāne, tēnā koe, te rangatira, the chair, councillors, senior leadership team, tēnā koutou e nā kaimahi o Palmerston City Council. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Selwyn. I have one question, which is, I note that we've had a health and safety audit recently with a number of recommendations. I note in a later report that we're changing the residual, there's a proposal to change the residual risk around health and safety. And I guess the thing that exercises my mind is, what are we and what is the management team doing to make sure that we don't become complacent, that we are living and breathing health and safety, and that even though it appears that things might be going better, what are we doing to avoid complacency in the organisation? How do we keep it front and centre?
I think we are taking a really good approach, especially based on the last audit. We talked, the key recommendations around that audit was emphasis in governance. So what we're looking at is continued improvement in training that we presented in a paper that my GM will present to SLT hopefully this Monday, looking at governance training through New Zealand Institute in terms of professional development, giving key information on where our responsibilities lay in governance. Another key emphasis is our worker engagement, really improving our worker engagement program, listening to our reps. We're doing a lot of work in that space at the moment with inviting our reps out into the workspace, getting to see what our frontline workers face and also just take some feedback on how we can better improve our health and safety journey. Another thing I think that is key is really understanding our critical risks. So what we've had in place since April, based on the recommendations, is a critical risk assurance program. What this program looks like is that we take critical risks on a monthly basis. We audit and review those risks. So as you might be aware, our top critical risk is working on the front line. What is coming to light also is lone worker. So we do have a bit of emphasis in that assurance program, concentrating on those risks, but we don't forget about our breaking ground, all our other types of critical risks that we have in the environment. So we are continually monitoring our critical risk program through this program. I think those are key things to do to promote a health and safety environment. We got great positive feedback on our journey through the Tui Whakaaro survey, with a 3 to 4% increase in confidence, but we shouldn't rest our laurels on that. We should always continue the journey to promote a safe environment for our people.
Thank you very much, Selwyn. Councillor Harpeta.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Selwyn. Just asking a question around the page 136, the trespass notices and the verbal altercations and physical danger. After we've seen these charts, it's quite alarming to see the amount of things that are going on. I'm just wondering about the well-being of staff after they've been through these kind of interactions with the public. How are they feeling after that? And what kind of support are we putting in place?
Yeah, through the chair, that's a really good question, Councillor. We work closely with the wellbeing team, especially with Connie's team. It's really important as part of these interactions, and it's unfortunate that they're occurring. We're empowering our people to trespass, which is kind of the last resort for poor behaviour. But what we ensure that we do as part of the debrief process, and also what we brought wellbeing into the reporting link, so that when we get these incidents through People Safe, they're engaged early at the reporting period, and then we just reach out. We just walk across the room and say, "Hey, are you aware of this incident?" And so we do a lot of wraparound. VTA are providing fantastic services, but it's also just that personal debrief with colleagues, talking through the poor engagement they have, and that's what we emphasise in our own internal training package, that the debrief period is an important part of that, just talking about the situation as many times as you can, to just help carry that load of mamae. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Thanks, Selwyn. Just looking at the second graph down on page 132, the incidents over the last 12 months. Now, am I correct to understand that the number at the bottom, like say for customer and community, the 182, is that the total over the 12 months, over that 12-month period?
Can I just swivel my head for a second there, Councillor? Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. And do you have a comparison of how that compares to previous years?
We can provide you with that information. Yeah.
In general, are the incidents increasing in number, or?
They're not decreasing.
They're not
unfortunately,
decreasing?
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Tēnā Selwyn, and thank you for the report. I'm concerned to see that customer and community is a high number, and possibly the highest number for incidents. And I wonder if you've got any insight into, is it particular areas of council? Is it across the board? Is there something extra that we need to be doing? I'm guessing it's because customer community has the most frontline working staff.
Yes, that's correct. They do have a lot of front-facing staff. That's inclusive of the library. as well. I know there's a lot of work that have been taken by the units, but I might hand the question over to the GM because I know she's really, Danelle's really invested in her people, so I'll hand that question over.
Kia ora, Danelle Whakatahi, GM, Customer and Community. Through the Chair, what we've seen actually is an increase in reporting from staff. So we've had some historical issues where maybe people have minimised some of those interactions that they're having in our community, and I've been encouraging everyone to report so we can get a really good understanding of what's really happening. So I expect those numbers to rise a bit more, and then we might start to see it come down.
And sorry, and is there a particular area or is it across the board?
The two particular areas for us is in our library space and our contact centre.
Okay, thank you.
Just over above that, Councillor, what we provide on a weekly basis is based on the critical risks that units are exposed to. We provide GMs with a weekly report of what's happening in their space.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Selwyn. It appears that there are no further questions on this component of the health and safety report. So I think at this point, we would like to move into part 2 of the agenda. And that is very timely because we are just a few minutes ahead of schedule, so we could break now for morning tea while the team organise that for us. And given that we're 5 minutes ahead of schedule, if we could be back in the chamber by 10:35, please. 10:30. So I'd like to move the recommendation now to move into part 2, which is set on the screen in front of us. I have a mover in Councillor Naylor, seconded by Councillor Dennison. We'll now put that to the vote. That's been carried unanimously, so we'll now break for morning tea, back in here at 10:30. Thank you.